Hear now these words from the prophet Isaiah, chapter 40, verses 21 through 31. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Has it not been told to you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain, and who spreads them like a tent to live in. He who brings princes to naught, and makes the rulers of the earth as nothing. Scarcely are they planted, scarcely sown, scarcely has their stem taken root in the earth, where he blows upon them and they wither, and the tempest carries them off like stubble. To whom then will you compare me? Or who is my equal, says the Holy One? Lift up your eyes on high and see. Who created these? He who brings out their host and numbers them, calling them all by name, because he is great in strength, mighty in power, not one is missing. Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my right is discarded by my God? Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Even youths will faint and be weary, and the young will fall exhausted. But those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. May God add understanding to this word. I'd like to say that I remember it so clearly. Yet, truth be told, I now know that I was sleepwalking for several years. I was a full-time spouse, full-time pastor, mom to our firstborn son, and then our second son was born. Our first son seemed so easy. He slept well. He was agreeable. It took just one look from his dad or I that kept him away from the fireplace or other dangerous things. So I thought, okay, a second child. This should be effortless. Let's just say it wasn't. That I do remember clearly. Son number 2 didn't really like to sleep. He barely took cat naps during the day, and at night he would be up several times. This lasted for about 3 years. I had never been so exhausted in my life. I just barely put one foot in front of the other and kept going. I don't think I even knew how weary and tired I was until later. When I looked back on those years, I realized I was utterly depleted. I have not felt that tired again in my life until this past year. My guess is you too feel weary, tired, exhausted, fatigued, whatever word fits you. The pandemic, the election cycle, the wildfires in Australia, the death of George Floyd and a reckoning with racism, protests, investigations, unrest in Hong Kong, threats from North Korea, and even murder hornets. We are worn out. too weary to walk, let alone run, too tired to move, let alone mount up with eagle's wings and fly. And in some moments, we just want to go back. We want to go back fully to our church buildings, go back to hugging family tightly, go back to restaurants and movie theaters and shopping malls, go back to not wearing a mask when in public, go back to large gatherings celebrating life at weddings and funerals. On our best days, when we see things more objectively, we know that going back is really not an option. The only option we have is to go forward. The world has changed, and we have changed. Oh, we will eat out again. We will hug and hold tightly again. We'll even gather fully in church buildings again. Yet make no mistake, we can't reclaim what has been lost. And that brings sorrow along with our already tired spirits. In this text from Isaiah, the prophet describes a time when the Israelites were feeling what we're feeling. They were in exile in Babylon after they had been invaded and the people forced to leave everything behind. Decades had gone by, and the future still seemed uncertain. They are just beginning to get the news that they will be released from captivity by the Persian king Cyrus, and they'll be able to return to their homeland. The thing is, not every one of the Israelites were exactly begging to go back home. Oh, some of the Judeans had been treated fairly while in exile, but others were put in what were essentially labor camps. They didn't all experience the exile in the same ways. Some were ready to leave captivity, others not so much. And besides, what did they have waiting for them back in Jerusalem? The land had been ravaged, the temple was destroyed, and the protective walls of the city were gone. Even in the best of situations, the restoration of Judah would have been a difficult thing. And after 50 years in exile, most of those Israelites remaining would have hardly known the place or remembered what it was like. Exile was hard, but returning was difficult too. And then here come the words of the prophet. He makes assertions of divine power. He says that God's incomparable power is for them, and it does not grow weary. He was helping them recall their faith in their God who abides with them everywhere, who gives strength even to the young who have grown too weary to walk. From age to age, God hears the cry of God's people and empowers them. And those eagle's wings, they're not just the protective wings of God. God also bestows on the people wings of their own. There was a great deal of uncertainty for the people in exile. They faced a daunting challenge to cross the desert again and return to a devastated homeland. They had grown weary and exhausted and weren't even sure if they could put one foot in front of the other. Yet God's messenger speaks to them and reminds them that God has always been with them and will provide even into an unknown future. When they wondered where God was, a message comes to reassure them that God has always been with them, even in the midst of the most difficult times, and will continue to provide them strength to walk into the future. Sometimes we have wondered where God is also. We've questioned why God hasn't intervened in the ways in which we had hoped. We've been so exhausted, we doubted that even God could give us enough strength to carry on. And it's okay to feel this way. God can handle our doubts and our questions, because there are times when we feel hopeless, when the brokenness of the world overwhelms us, when justice is elusive, and we wonder where God is present. And Isaiah says that in these times, when we feel dispirited or in despair, we are called to wait upon God. And the prophet also says that we wait with God. When we feel lost or alone, we can be confident that God's love surrounds us and will empower us to go on. And while we wait for our strength to be renewed, we do not do so passively. We continue to work toward the kind of world God envisions, where all are valued, where everyone has enough to eat, where the oppressed are freed, where compassion and love steer our course, and a world where sleep-deprived parents continue to put one foot in front of the other. We continue to act out of the foundation of our faith, out of the knowledge of God's abiding presence with us, even in the most dire of circumstances. And we remember that we will not be able to move back into the past. And so we do put one foot in front of the other, and with God's strength, we walk boldly into an uncertain future, knowing that God goes with us.